Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of the Diary of a Business Owner, where I'm documenting what's going on with the small business I recently bought and just running a business in general, talking about strategy, what's going on, what I'm thinking about doing for the future, and all that sort of stuff. So it's also a chance for you guys to ask questions about what's going on or potentially pitch ideas as well. We can kind of discuss strategy, and the whole idea is for this to be more of a forum for discussion about business and running a business yourself, or if you're maybe part of another business and you're trying to help grow it or run it. All just trying to get better as business owners, as investors, all that sort of stuff. Anyways, this being the second episode, if you want to hear more about the specific business that I bought, definitely go and check out episode number 1, which was a little bit over a week ago. But in short, I bought a carpet cleaning business in Houston, Texas. It's currently doing around $300,000 per year top line. That's with 2 full-time employees, though I just hired a third, which we'll get into. I did hire a manager, as I was alluding to in the last episode. But that's the business I'm working with. Has really great reviews, has done really good work over the past few years. It's about 6-ish years old, 6 or 7, depending on how you do math. We'll call it 7 years old. It's how long the business has been operational, and it's amassed a really good reputation in the community. So I'm kind of stepping into that, and there's plenty to keep going there. And it's definitely a lot of responsibility for someone who's never run a business with multiple full-time employees. So but it's been a lot of fun so far, and I'll get into that. But first, I guess I'll kind of address the fact that I did hire a manager. I was talking about it a bit last time, in that I wanted someone who could just be dedicated full-time to growing this business. I'm dedicated as well, though I would not say full-time at the moment. I'm putting in plenty of hours already, but I'm practicing full-time as an attorney. So I do want someone there to focus on the operations of the business. And I wanted that to be my first hire rather than, say, another technician or an office admin, because I just wanted someone who I could ideally incentivize like a business owner. I've given this manager a revenue split, and in that way, they're incentivized to help grow the business, in a similar way to like an owner might, although he does not currently have equity in the business. Maybe that'll change in the distant future. But for now, there's a clear incentive to try and grow the business from where it's at. I got someone with really good experience operationally, has run a business kind of like this before, at least a contractor business. So that's really great. You have someone who has experience, more experience than I do in this sort of thing, and has also run larger operations as well. So it's been a really good first. We're approaching a week, just a couple days away, but definitely a good first few days. We had a couple jobs already that we've kind of worked through, and before we get to that, again, just kind of explaining why I wanted to go for a top level manager first rather than maybe a lower level employee, because I think growth really flows downstream from the top. And if you can, at least the way I'm thinking about this is, if you can put the big pieces in place first. So your top level talent, your top level managers, all that sort of stuff. If you get that in place first, those are the people who can really help supercharge growth, especially people who have experience or better skills than I do in certain areas. So we can kind of bring those skills together at the top level. It's a lot easier to grow from there. Whereas if I was just hiring someone from, let's say, a lower level employee, maybe another technician, an office admin, I still have to manage that person. Now I'm stretching myself even more thin. So that's more stress added to it when it really should be taking away stress, or at least making you, at least putting you in a better position, rather than now making your job that much harder just because you happen to bring on another person. I'd rather bring on someone who can help manage that issue of building out the team and can help from the top level. So that's a big reason I wanted to go with that first, because I think if you get those top level pieces in line, a lot of good stuff will flow through after that. So as long as all goes well, of course. If you hire someone bad at the top, the exact opposite is true too. So it's an important hire. I took some time on it. I spent a good month looking for this person. At least I had the job posting up for a month, and I interviewed a number of people and got quite a few applications, really solid applications, I must say. The Houston job market seems to be okay, I guess, or I should say the Houston labor market seems to be quite good, in that there are a lot of people here, and there's a lot of people moving here too. So anyways, myself included, I guess. I moved here. There's a lot of people coming from out of state. I had a few people who weren't even in Texas at the time that were applying to the job, so got some good interest. I initially the only place that I posted this job was on Indeed, and because I actually hadn't closed on the business yet, I couldn't share the name and certain details about the business, but I shared as much as I could, kind of the basic numbers, the basic structure, and what we were working with. Uh, Before I knew we were going to be closing. Then when we did close, I did reveal the name to the finalist candidates and kind of talked more about fine tuning strategy and could get into more specific things during the interviews. But the way I kind of ran interviews is um, I put out the post saying that the pay would be proportionate to earnings and all that stuff, proportionate to the revenue of the business. So it's very performance based. Tried to emphasize that this is going to be a pretty wide set of responsibilities for this role, since it's a small business and they're coming on as like the chief operator, the general manager of the business. So it was important that they understood that there was a lot of responsibility here, but there's lots of opportunity for growth. And then after someone would apply to the post, I would send a message just clarifying more details and emphasizing that pay was going to be variable. It's dependent on revenue. I was offering that revenue split. If I wanted to make sure they're comfortable with that, also the location, the fact that they would probably have to be in person at least a good amount of the time. Just emphasizing more about what the job actually was to make sure that it was what they were looking for. That filtered out a few people who maybe were expecting something else or something, we'll call it more stable, less entrepreneurial. I was really looking for an entrepreneurial candidate, someone ideally who maybe has run a business before, sold a business, but really likes the building game, but just doesn't want to take the same amount of risk as putting up their own money or whatever it is. And I got quite a few of those people who had good experience, maybe running a franchise that they ended up selling, or growing a business from X to Y level. So you could really tell who I guess you could say you could really tell who knows what to put on a resume, or who maybe knows what to look for on a resume for this sort of role, because a lot of candidates would say, maybe they would list out the responsibilities, and it would scream very corporate, like someone told me what to do and I did it, which is all well and good. But I was looking for someone who was pretty entrepreneurial and could take a lot of responsibilities and was focusing on growing the business. And I could usually tell right away if someone kind of got that, if they said, grew sales in the business from X to Y, or increased profitability from X to Y, something like that. Those key performance indicators, did this, initiated this, hired this many people, built out a team of this many people, kind of those building aspect things I would look for on resumes, and and it was fairly difficult to narrow it down from between the last few candidates. Anyways, after I would send that message, I would, for those who had pretty strong looking resumes, maybe had some more questions. And even if I didn't have too many questions, I would ask for a phone screen. So just a quick, say, 10-minute interview, kind of pre-interview, just to once again reemphasize, here's what the job is. It's variable pay. You want to make sure like this is what you're looking for, and you're not looking for some like super stable, just check in, check out kind of job. Which there's definitely a place for it, but that's not what this was going to be. So I just re-emphasized what the responsibilities were going to be, gave them a little bit more information as I could. And by this time I was closing, so I could start telling everyone like what well, not everyone, but I told those who I could what the business name was and all that. I had to be careful with the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, while I was under contract. They then would, if that went well, I would then set up another interview, a full interview, where I'd ideally meet them in person. For one person, I did like a full virtual interview before then meeting them in person. The point is, I'm kind of incrementally getting bigger with the interviews, just making sure that I get this one right. Talking to this person multiple times, maybe through multiple forms of communication, phone. You start with text, then phone, then in person, just kind of ramping it up from there, I guess. Don't want to waste anyone's time, of course. And then from there, meet them in person for the final interview. If I needed any follow-ups, I'd do it from there. And yeah, I ended up with the candidate that I ended up hiring, and so far so good. We seem to be aligned on a lot of things with goals of the business. We're working out kind of the more fine-tuned daily sorts of responsibilities and things to focus on for now, because we're both learning about this business kind of as we go. Like we knew a good amount going in, but I just bought the thing, so I only knew so much. I can't say there have been too many surprises. Certainly not too many negative surprises, I guess. Things have been operating quite smoothly. Um, but we're kind of building that out now. And that's what we've really been doing for the past now almost a week since coming on, just kind of getting a feel for things. I'm still doing quite a bit, but we're focusing on kind of a sales campaign right now, which I mentioned in the last episode, but I'll get back to that. But kind of back to processes. We're trying to develop sort of a checklist of everything that's got to get done every day, week, other week, every month, quarterly, those sorts of things that we definitely need to do. So I want to make sure they're written down somewhere, and that we can uh, make sure we find a process or find someone to do each of these things, and that things aren't falling through the cracks. So that's been kind of one thing that we're working on right now, as we kind of learn about, okay, hey, here's something that we could fix that we just noticed. Here's something that we definitely have to do. Here's something that's annoying, stuff like that. It's laying it all out there so it's easier to figure out what to fix for the future, or just what to assign and make sure it just gets done on a routine basis. So that's been something we've been doing now. The previous owner did a really nice job, and actually the manager commented this as well. He agreed that things were pretty well optimized coming into the business. There, he had a lot of things that were already delegated pretty nicely. Hasn't been too steep of a learning curve because of that, because the previous owner wasn't doing everything. He was really treating it like a business, trying to work on the processes rather than just do everything himself. And there is a time and a place for that, but if you're trying to build a business asset, you want to make sure that you have room to delegate things, and you're treating it like a business as much as you can. Not being lazy, of course. There's still plenty of work to do even after you delegate. But the point of delegating is so you can work on the things that you can do best. Maybe that's getting new business. Maybe that's fixing a process, whatever it is. But that's the whole part of building a business. Anyways, I'm looking at some comments real quick. Kyle Grimm in the chat. So excited to hear more about the carpet cleaning business. Fellow business owner himself. You're more of a real estate guy, right, Kyle? Okay, I guess we'll do a quick side tangent before I get back to kind of what we're working on with processes. Frank offers a great question. Assuming we are entering a long-term recession, are you concerned that carpet cleaning will suffer? Is it recession-proof? I was actually just talking with a buddy of mine today about this. I think basically any business, or 99% of businesses, will suffer if there's just a widespread terrible recession. That's the nature of the game. However, this being less of a discretionary item, eventually you got to get your stuff cleaned. It shouldn't be as hard hit as maybe some of the tech companies we're seeing with their massive layoff packages right now, or their not packages, massive layoff initiatives, we'll say, just to try and cut costs. And this being such a small business, even if there was a huge recession, it's not like you couldn't keep growing your slice of the pie during that time. So that's kind of helpful in that it's not like we're already saturating the market or something. So even if the market does shrink, there's still profits to be made. But anyways, one thing that is nice about the location I've picked is, now that I'm not in Chicago anymore, I've moved down to Houston. And I would imagine if we really entered a terrible long-term recession, just like a brutal one, like a 2008 style thing or Great Depression style thing in a modern world, I'd imagine an area like Houston will end up kind of muting some of the effects of the recession versus something like a Chicago that I moved out of, because it's definitely a lot cheaper down here. There are lots of jobs. People will go to jobs. They will go to cheaper areas in a truly horrible recession. Not to say that Houston will be spared, or other growing cities, but I think that is a significant advantage that I've effectively bought myself by moving down here and buying the business here rather than somewhere else. And granted, my competition has the same benefits too, but I do think some of the secular tailwinds, like population growth, that's going to help. So Houston does have that going for it. It has its flaws, but I think that will help. I'm not going to bet on that explicitly, but um, at the same time, I'm not going to get overly paranoid about a recession. All I can really do right now is just try to improve the position, grow the business, grow cash flows, pay down debt to try and give myself some room. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. I haven't quit my attorney job at this point, so I'm going to keep doing that. That's still taking up the majority of my working time. So I'll be doing that, bringing in that salary. That'll be used to pay down debt and get myself in a stronger position while I am running this business. So yeah, that's not going to go away. That should give me some. Each month that goes by, I should have some more room, even if the economy is getting worse. And yeah, that's all I can really focus on. But good question, Frank. Okay. Now, with back to processes, trying to figure out kind of where to improve things. We actually went. So I actually finally went on a job. It's been about 2 weeks now since I've owned the business. So I finally went on a job. It was a big job. It was actually pretty close to my house, so it was easy to get to for me. And this is the first job I also brought the manager out to. This was like his second or third day. So we decided to go to a job. Both of our full-time technicians were there. It's a large commercial job, and we wanted to make sure this customer was happy. And the morning started off with a hiccup because we're supposed to, so the way we set things up is if a job is starting at 9, we typically give an arrival window of between 9 and 11 or 9 and 10, depending. But this being a Saturday and it was the only job, we just set it up as 9, but our app that we schedule in still says it's an arrival window. However, that was not communicated clearly to the customer. So they were expecting us to be there at like 9 o'clock sharp. Our vans were like 30 minutes after that. So they were in about 9:30, 9:45, somewhere between there, which technically is on time, but the customer wasn't expecting that. So the customer was upset right away. That was not good. However, we did what we could, and we both the manager and I helped out to set up the job, and also sprayed some soap down. They were doing a bunch of tile grout, so we were helping actually do some of the work, and actually see how it's done as well, since I had never actually really seen it up close. I just only heard about it, described about it, seen videos and stuff like that, and then I've talked with the technicians about it. But this is actually seeing it up close and actually getting in there. So that was really good, just to be on the job site. The customer definitely appreciated that. We had more people there. I guess last time this is a repeat customer from something like a year and a half ago. And they, I guess that job took a long time. It was the same job, but it was only one technician last time, and it took all day. And I think he was expecting that. So the half hour meant a lot to him, but he didn't realize that we had 2 trucks coming, and then we had some extra helping hands between myself and the manager as well. So we had 4 people there. And then we left, the manager and I left about halfway through to go to make some sales calls and set that up. So that the customer ended up being happy because we finished fast. We finished at like by 1 p.m. rather than what he would have expected, probably 3 or 4 or 5 p.m. So we kind of saved ourselves there. But a lesson there is to very clearly communicate when we're supposed to be there, when we're going to be there. I think for a weekend job at 9, it makes sense that we would be there right at 9. No reason to delay. People want to get this stuff done on the weekend and get it over with so they can go do fun stuff on the weekend in many cases. So just a learning lesson there. But anyways, the manager and I got to see a large job in action. We made the customer happy in the end. He said he'd be using us again and would refer us out potentially to other people. So that was really great. It ended up being a successful job, although a little bit stressful at the beginning because we thought we were in some trouble. But he apologized for being upset. But regardless, a learning lesson in any event. We could have communicated things a lot more clearly to the customer. So I've been mentioning making sales calls. That's the other thing we've been focusing on, getting a sales campaign going. So we have, with this business, a big portion of the value I saw in this business, in addition to the nice brand and the good work they've done and the good employees that came with the business. Granted, they can always leave if they want to, so it's not like that's guaranteed, but something that won't leave, even if everyone else in this business leaves me and I'm left alone. one thing that this business does have is an email list of over 6,000 people. It's like 6,500 people. So that's really valuable in itself. And these are mostly former customers, so people who have actually used or at least gotten a quote from our business. So that's a very distinct advantage over someone who doesn't have any of those, because instead of having to go cold call a bunch of people, I have a bunch of relatively warm leads to start tapping into. And that's what we started doing this week. We're kind of working on a script for calling some of these old customers. And we're focusing first on people who haven't been served by us in the last year plus, because typically you're supposed to get your carpets cleaned or tile grout cleaned or furniture cleaned every year to year and a half or so. So we're calling people and are just checking in with them to see if they would like to do that, since they've already used this before. So there's a level of trust there. And if there's a huge red flag on one of the old accounts, we'll be like, okay, let's not go with this one because it's probably asking for trouble. But in some cases, it could make sense to focus on those people too, just try and win back their business. But if it was just like a headache customer who maybe was being unreasonable according to the notes, we'll try to avoid that person probably. But if it's just someone who might have been a little bit unsatisfied, okay, we'll try to address what went wrong, and maybe they'd still be worth calling and trying to sell to. But for now, we're trying to go for those warm leads, just to get some business on the table. It is a slower season, so if we can have a full schedule now, that'll be fantastic by the time we get to spring cleaning season, which apparently is March, April, around that time. Which apparently is big for this business. You get a lot of people during that time, and also around the holidays, which are now behind us. So we've started calling people, and what's interesting is we've only called about 30 people over the past couple of days, just trying to test the waters, work out a basic script. And of those 30 people, we've booked 2 already, and we have 2 more who are about to book. So if those other 2 book like they said they were, then we're looking at over a 10% close rate already, which is like phenomenal. I was expecting maybe 1 to 5% on close rates. I'm not saying that this will persist, but if it's anything close to that, that just shows you the value of having a large bucket of warm leads of people who have used the business before, who were happy with the service they got, and are willing to potentially use you guys again, to use our business again. So really excited about that, and that's been a really great start. Seeing as though I'm not an expert, I don't think I'm an expert salesman, and I don't think the general manager is an expert either. But we're not. It's not like we're completely incompetent, and we're just picking up the phone and calling people. And I guess a lot of people don't do that. And one good thing is a lot of these numbers are actual numbers. It's not like buying cold leads on the internet where the numbers might, who knows what they are. In this case, it's people who've used the business before. It's a real number, and you also have their email usually, and so in combination with the phone calls, we can also email them if we get a voicemail, and we can also text them as well. So it's a huge advantage just to have an existing contact list of so many people, because right now, if the business serves about 800 people per year, or at least that's what they served last year. So if we're able to get 5 to 10% of the 5,000 or so that haven't been served in the last year, then there you go. You just doubled the amount of business compared to last year. So if we can do anything remotely close to that, would be great, and it'd be a positive step for the business, getting more people back in to kind of that more recurring business model. You got people who are like, okay, you guys have done great multiple times now. I'm going to keep using you each year to do my cleanings and refer you out to more people, and just get that virtuous cycle going. Obviously, it all comes down to doing a good job, which the team does, and we're trying to make sure that remains the case. So that's been a big project so far, and very, very excited to keep going with that, because it has been a really good start already, with so few calls, only about 30, and we've already got 2 to 4 bookings, 2 for sure, and then 2 extremely likely. They were just they were like in the car or something and wanted to call back when we get home, which should be right about now. So we'll be calling them back now. So yeah, it's off to a good start there, and that's going to be a big project over the next really couple of months. And ideally, we'll make it just an ongoing thing. We call say 50 people a day till we get through the whole list. And then from there, maybe drop it down to 25 or something. You just old customers who haven't been there in a year. And if we just get a voicemail, we'll call them back periodically as well. And if someone says they don't want to be called again, then obviously we won't. So that's kind of the big focus right now. Sales, getting demand up, I think, is the number one focus for the business right now, because we have capacity. We definitely have capacity to add on a lot more business, and our technicians want it too, because they can make more money. So it's a complete win-win if we can get more customers. Win-win-win, I guess, if the customer's happy too. Customer's happy. We're happy because we're making more money, and the technicians are happy because they're making more money too, via actual job wages and also tips as well, because these guys tend to make a good amount of tips because they do good work, and the people of Houston are kind, at least kind enough to tip their carpet cleaners, so that's nice. So that's the big focus right now, and that's something that the manager and I are going to be working on very closely together, and also working on getting some of those day-to-day things kind of passed on to the manager. For example, invoicing customers. I've been doing a lot of that, trying to get everything onto our app as well, making sure that our technicians are not using, we use a fair amount of paper invoices, which we're trying to move away from, trying to encourage them to only use the House Call Pro app, which is what the main app that we use. Talked about it a bit on the last episode. But just trying to move towards fully digital as much as we can. Someone wants to pay with check and cash, that's fine. We actually do get a lot of that. That's all good, because you can deposit that in one batch. But having paper invoices floating around can be a bit dicey, especially if it's different than the digital one. So want to make sure that we're using fully digital. You can adjust it on the app at the job. So encouraging our technicians to do that, and slowly getting them used to that. We've already moved off of, we had 2 payment processors for a while. So, or at least the previous owner did. So we moved to just the one, which is the House Call Pro payment processor. So that simplifies things as well. Less things to manage, less confirmation emails floating around. It's just trying to simplify things a bit more, so it's even smoother than it already was. So, looking at my list here, I wrote some bullets to make sure I hit them. The last one I actually wrote down was customer reviews. So it's been really nice to get some very positive customer reviews. One thing that's nice about House Call Pro is it automatically will send review requests, and you can actually pick. I didn't realize you could pick where the review request will be to, because you can have it go to your Facebook page, to your Google reviews, which I think is the most important. And then also your website, which probably is the least important. I've never believed reviews on a particular company's website, because you can filter them, whereas Google and Facebook are a lot harder to filter out bad ones. So it feels more honest than potentially they would be on a website. So anyways, I adjusted the settings on House Call Pro to where now the vast majority, like 80 or 90% of requests, will automatically be Google, and then 10% will be Facebook, because the business does get quite a bit of customers from Facebook retargeting ads. So if someone goes onto the website or likes the Facebook page, which we have a good sized group now, then they'll be getting retargeting ads, and that's really where I think Facebook's biggest value as an advertiser is. It's retargeting ads. Someone who's been to your site, because Facebook tracks all that data and has its tracking pixels and all that. It's really great for retargeting customers who have already been to your website. So you use Google to get them to your website. They check it out. Maybe they don't buy then. Now they go on Facebook or whatever, and then you have that retargeting ad to ping them again. And that ideally is where you can close a lot of people. And that is how we do close a fair number of new customers, and also some former customers who've already liked the page. So back to reviews. House Call Pro does do a nice job of automating the review request process, but I do want to make a pretty strong effort, at least while the business is as manageable as it is now, to call former customers, ideally from I'm talking about customers we just completed a job for like a day or two ago. Call them, thank them for their business, and also and then request a review from there. Ask for feedback as well. I think getting kind of those feedback and review request calls would be really helpful, and also potentially very valuable. and it's an extra touch point for a happy customer as well. Just showing that we're willing to go that extra mile, asking for feedback, making sure they're happy, making sure they're satisfied. If something needs to be recleaned, we'll go out and reclean it. I've already had to do that once, or I should say, the team, have already had to do that once, where the customer was unhappy because there was some residue left behind. So we sent out our guys again, no questions asked, just to clean it up. Then she was happy, all paid, all good. So just going that extra mile to make sure that customers are always happy. So that has been a big focus, or that I want to make a bigger focus over the next also a few months, kind of in line with these sales calls. Just asking people if they're happy with everything, and if they need any, if they're able to leave a review on something like Google as well, that would be really fantastic, because Google reviews are great. The business already has a really good profile. Just improving it further, building that moat, if you will, and kind of going from there. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on with the business. Got another question here from Kyle. Maybe you touched on this, but would be curious about what other service-based businesses you were considering. Good question. I kind of mentioned it a bit in the last show. That was definitely a hard thing, was narrowing down the niche, trying to figure out what business to actually go for, because there's just so many out there. It's kind of overwhelming. It's fun because you're looking at all these cool businesses, had no idea they were making this kind of money, and or had this kind of scale and all that. So that's pretty cool. But it can be easy to get kind of lost in all the different business opportunities out there. So I just decided to narrow it down on a cleaning niche, or the first was a service-based business, rather than a physical product or a restaurant or something like that. You could call a restaurant a service, but there's a lot of product involved, and it's a very low margin in many cases. But I decided to narrow it down on a service-based business. One I was actually getting pretty close on was a pool servicing business. So like a pool route. There are a lot of pools down here in Houston, so there's plenty scalable opportunity. And I guess pool routes are pretty commoditized in that you can buy batches of pool routes, which is kind of cool. But that was one I was getting pretty close on. That was definitely the closest other business I was getting on while I was looking at this carpet cleaning one as well. But I definitely was just kind of deciding, okay, I'll probably go for like a cleaning type niche. And that's why I was kind of between pool servicing versus carpet cleaning. They're different, but they're simple enough to understand that the learning curve isn't too massive. I probably argue that the learning curve for pools is a bit higher, but regardless, maybe I'll get around to buying a pool business at some point. Just it wouldn't be in the next month. Got plenty to work on here with the carpet cleaning business, but that was kind of the big one I was looking at. And similarly, they're all, pricing wise, they're all very similar in that they typically are very low multiples. So you can get a lot of cash flow for your dollar, and they're generally simple, pretty scalable. So I was just kind of looking in that kind of cleaning servicing niche. But good question, because there is a lot to sort through. If there's something that you really like, of course, if you're looking for your own business, then you can narrow it down to that too. Maybe you want to buy a restaurant. I didn't want to, but maybe you do. Maybe long term, it'd be kind of nice to own a restaurant if you didn't actually need to make money on it. To just do it kind of at cost. That'd be kind of cool. But that's more of a hobby at that point than an actual profitable opportunity. But yeah, you can. I don't mean to use this episode to just trash restaurants, because you can make money on them too. But just it wasn't something that I was looking for. It's a very involved sort of business, and very hard to scale as well profitably. But good question, Kyle. Got this other one from Investing Solutions. Says, how do you find time to manage a small business while working what I assume is 40 to 60 hours as a lawyer? Yes, that would be accurate, and good question. Frankly, I feel like I was spending more time, at least thinking about this business and trying to coordinate everything for the purchase before I actually owned it. I've still spent plenty of time, don't get me wrong, but man, for some reason, buying it has been a lot more stressful than actually owning and running it, which I guess is great. But probably because we haven't run into any crises at this point. But even so, I just feel a lot more at ease, a lot less uncertainty. I kind of am seeing everything every day now, see how things operate. It's just a lot more approachable than it might have been a month ago, and that I'm actually in the game. So it really hasn't been too bad. But yeah, as for time management, I spend Now that I have this manager, he can help start taking a lot of the day-to-day stuff out of my plate. And then I can focus on maybe some of the higher level stuff, or just focusing on sales, because I think that is the number one priority right now. But getting processes in place and maybe helping build the team, whatever the business needs, I can kind of go towards. Whereas the manager can work on a lot of those day-to-day things, and we can strategize together. So I'm spending at the moment still a couple hours a day every day. So yeah, but we'll call it 10 to 20 hours a week at the moment, closer to 20 because we're still just starting out and there's lots to do. And then, like you allude to in the question, I do work over 40 hours, we'll say, each week as an attorney. Though actually in the last month, I haven't been billing as much as I probably should be. I'm still billing plenty, but not up to the 40-hour clip you really ideally should be hitting. But I'm getting back up to that now. So, but leading up to the purchase, it was a stressful time, and the holiday travel and everything. So kind of getting those billables back up, make sure that I don't fall behind, because that would be very stressful. If by the end of the billable year, I would have to make up a massive amount of hours or something, just to maintain good standing with the firm. Don't want to get to that point. So getting those hours back up, so that's been good. Build a bunch of hours actually yesterday to kind of catch up, and then build a good amount today too. We didn't have any jobs. We don't have any jobs on Sunday, so that was kind of a good day to catch up on hours. But yeah, just working away. So it's definitely a lot to juggle, but it's really just like having a full-time job and then a part-time job at the moment. So a lot of people do that. It's definitely manageable if you're wanting to do it. I'm having a lot of fun with this business. And I weirdly, even though I have more work than ever, I feel more energized than say a year ago from today. First off, I'm loving being in Houston during winter, not in Chicago, for just by the weather alone. So I think that's definitely improved my mood quite a bit. It's like I just go outside and take a walk, and it won't like hurt like it would in Chicago. So I think that's definitely helped. But then this business has been it's really cool to actually get into the trenches and start learning a lot about business from the front lines. So that's been really great to do. And it's made content better too. So it's just kind of improved everything. I've been filming some content about the business. It improves the content. I'm more excited to talk about it. I'm doing this stream right now, talking about it. So it's just fun to talk about it, meeting people in the space, talking to other business owners or people interested in business. It's a cool space to be in. And yeah, it's definitely very exciting. If something goes poorly in the business, I have legal work to do. If something goes poorly with legal work, I have the business to kind of to shift focus on. So it's kind of nice not getting lost in either, I guess, and at least for the bad times, because there's ups and downs and everything. So it's kind of nice having both levers to push on. Granted, this lever is definitely quite a bit more scalable. But the other ones, you could say, is more stable. So there's pros and cons to both. But it is a challenge. To get back to the question, it is a challenge, but I've generally enjoyed it so far. And it's a lot of work, but as long as I just stay on top of my time management, that's all I can really do. Checklists, communicating. We're doing daily check-in calls with the manager, so making sure we're on the same page every day. Don't want to let anyone go rogue. So just making sure that everything's moving forward each day. We're taking positive steps. We're moving towards our initiatives, and also clarifying those initiatives as we learn more. So good question, regardless. So yeah, exciting times ahead. Trying to grow this thing, and the goal would be, just a rough goal. It's kind of hard to say because we haven't really gotten deep into this sales initiative, but I think a decent yet ambitious goal would be to at least double sales this year. So go from 300,000 up to $600,000. And the reason that's doable is we've basically doubled the amount of talent in that we have 2 full-time technicians. Now we have a full-time manager, so that person can help grow the business. And then you have me involved as well. I can grow the business too. So you have just more effort and energy going towards growing the business. So that's, I think, is definitely an achievable goal. and we'll definitely learn more as we go in. I'm still very new to this, so maybe that's overly ambitious, but might as well shoot high, uh, and just promising to not use reckless means like taking completely unprofitable work, losing money on each sale, or some of the various business practices that you see a lot of dying businesses do. Because this is definitely not a dying business. There's plenty of margins, and just kind of pushing on the levers to try and increase sales and create a bigger impact in our market, in our community, and getting in more potential customers. Contact lists, and making sure that we're putting our good reputation out there, and that more people learn about us. So a lot of it's always fun because there's always something to do, there's always something to work on, always something to improve, and maybe that's what I like. I just like the building part of this. Is that if I put effort into something, you're actually building something. Whereas sometimes with a lot of salary jobs, even with the attorney stuff, you can put a lot of hours into something, and some it doesn't always really bear a lot of fruit, which can be frustrating. It's like I said, it's a trade-off. There's still plenty to learn in either thing, and just because you don't make a bunch more money for putting a bunch of effort in doesn't mean it wasn't worth it. But it is kind of nice to have both to push on. Like I was saying, you got very, I'd say, intellectually stimulating work with the law stuff and solving problems there, and then over here you have, I'd say, a lot simpler work, but it's not like it's any less challenging because it's working with teams, and working with teams is not easy. And being able to build teams is a very lucrative skill, and it's a very hard skill. So that's kind of working on all those skill sets at the same time. It's very satisfying. Just kind of build up those really what become complementary skill sets. You have team building and organizational management and all that stuff, sales. And you combine that with my skills as an attorney, analytical skills, um, thinking about how to structure things, seeing how people do deals, always looking at the risks associated with certain things. So it's nice to kind of have another thing to apply my existing skill set to. And then finding others who have different complementary skill sets that are in a different area, and just kind of building the team from there. It's a very satisfying process. So with that said, it's about time I get back to work, right? And I appreciate everyone for hopping on the stream. I'll be trying to do, like I kind of said last week, trying to do one of these probably every week. Maybe bi-weekly will be more of the actual cadence, but there's plenty to talk about as we're kind of starting out here. So I want to make sure I document it and kind of talk about what I'm thinking about, and maybe get some of your ideas as well. Some of your questions help me think about things too. So I'm definitely going to keep doing this. And maybe you find it valuable, maybe not. Whatever the case, I appreciate you all for tuning in. This was the second episode of the Diary of a Business Owner, and I'll see you all for episode 3 next time.